tried watching?
Yes.
All right, great. Okay. So there's no issue, right? Watching, you can access, correct? Okay. So today, very quickly, before we start our session, I want to take you to the assignment. Just give me a few minutes. If you can open your assignment brief, you will be able to see the second task. Okay. The second task is all about, okay, just hold on. Okay, let's have a look at this assignment brief, which I believe all of you have opened and seen. If you look at this, I hope you have done your introduction and background, but we are going to do a few things like the background. I'll be talking about culture, politics, climate, ease of doing business, corruption perception index. These are the things I'll be doing. Along with that, I'll also be doing the environmental scan today. So we are going to cover, your item 2 and 3 in today's class. Okay. So if you can do your assignment along with me, it would be very nice. It will be easy for you. If not, it's going to be tough for you. All right, so let's get moving. I hope you understand what we are going to do today, right? So we're going to look at all these areas. Then we'll also be doing at the environmental scan using the pestle model, pestle analysis. Okay. Hello, are you all there?
Yes.
Good. Okay, do you have any questions for me before we start the class? Abdi, hello, Abdul Ghani. Are you there, Abdul Ghani? Okay, good. You are MBA regular student, right? Not MBA HM or ODL student. Correct. Okay, thanks. So if there are any student from MBA ODL or MBA Hospital Management ODL, please do let me know, because your class is at 2:30, separate class for you at 2 o'clock or 2:30. Okay, so you have to join there, same subject. Please remember this. Okay, good. So let's move on with today's agenda. And today's agenda is all about understanding the environmental variables. Okay, and I'll be taking some time to discuss quite a lot of things today. And please do help me by sharing your thoughts and ideas. Okay, before we proceed, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, is that in PowerPoint show or just normal? Hello?
It's PowerPoint.
PowerPoint slideshow or normal slide? Can you see big or small?
It's bigger, maybe.
Okay,
Normal.
okay, good.
It's
So,
small. Small.
for some people it's small, some people it's, actually I put it on slideshow. Maybe what we can do is, when you're watching, you have an option to click on the three dots and make your screen bigger. You know, there are three dots, right? So you click on the three dots near to your leave call button, and there you make it as full screen for you. Clear?
Yes.
So if you do that, then you can see it bigger. Did you all understand me?
Yes.
Good. All of you have seen, if you look at the bottom of the screen, there is a red button, leave call. Next to that, there are three dots with more options. You click there, you'll find a full screen option. Click onto the full screen option, then your screen will become bigger. Clear?
Yes, I see.
Okay, good. I like that. Okay, so let's move on with understanding international business environment. So how do we understand international business environment? With the help of the pestle analysis model, which some of you might have studied in your undergraduate level. So pestle has different names. Some people call it as PEST, P-E-S-T. Some call it as pestle, some call it as pestle. But at the end of the day, what we are doing is a political, economic, socio-cultural, technological, environmental, and legal analysis. Okay, so originally it was called the PEST analysis. So there they had four variables: political, economic, social, and technological. Then later on, some people added environmental and legal, and some even call it as PESLE. They wanted to add social, political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. Some, different ways of looking at it. Some put legal before, some put environmental before, and so on. So you can watch plenty of videos on how to do your political analysis or this pestle analysis. There are so many videos available on internet. I hope you can take time to watch some of the videos. We have quite a number of slides to go through today. So I'll be moving a bit fast today. So if you don't understand, what you have to do is to stop me. If you want to share some good examples, you can always interrupt me. So let us try to make this class an interactive class rather than just a monologue. Okay? And if you don't understand, then please talk to me. Don't message. If you message, because I'm having a full screen in front of me, so I won't be able to see your message when I'm talking and teaching. So it's always good that you talk to me so that at least you can say, hello teacher, can you repeat something. So I know there is a problem. All right. So if there is nothing coming from your side, I will assume that everything is perfect that end, and I'll continue talking. All right. So these are the learning objectives for today. So we're going to look at the business environmental systems in international business. We'll also look at the impact of the technological environment and other various elements. So starting from political until we reach the environmental environment, we are going to understand how all these elements play an important role if you want to do business in another country. How does it affect your business decisions? Remember, in your assignment, you are the international marketing manager. So if you don't understand all these variables, you can't make the right decisions. So please remember, the reason why we study this topic today is to make the correct decisions if you want to enter into another country. So normally the environmental variables, as we discussed, are political, social, legal, technological, economic, cultural, linguistic, religious, aesthetics, values. There are so many things. So if you look at the socio-cultural environment, that involves language, aesthetics means sense of beauty, values and attributes, social organizations, material culture. Then if you look at the legal, we have to really understand local domestic laws, international laws. Then when you look at political environment, we are going to look at operational restrictions, discriminatory restrictions, what are the actions by the government on business, and so on. Technological environment, there are a lot of factors we need to look at, like satellites, communications, ISDN, internet, electronic superhighway, etc. And when we look at the economic factor, we are going to look at developed economies, emerging economies, less developed economies, currency movement, and economic blockades, sanctions, etc., etc. So it's going to be quite interesting. And for you to understand this particular session, you got to read a lot about what is happening around us. Okay, so our focus will be, I'll be drawing a lot of examples today from what is happening around the globe in terms of business. So I hope we can have a very good discussion today. So let us look at the cultural factors, okay? Definitely next week also we are going to look at the cultural factors in detail, but let's understand how different countries look at cultural factors very differently. So let's take the example of Coca-Cola. For example, Spain, the refrigerators are quite small, so they don't have these 2-liter Coca-Cola bottles. They have maybe 1-liter bottles or even smaller. But if you come to countries like maybe China, India, you'll find bigger bottles, 1.5 liters, 2 liters bottles, and so on, which is very common because here people buy huge refrigerators because a refrigerator is not only having a utility value, but it also has a prestige value in most of the homes. The bigger the refrigerator, the bigger the value or higher the prestige in, that's how it is looked up mostly in Asian and African countries. It's not the utility that matters, but size matters and esteem, self-esteem matters when it comes to a refrigerator. So these factors have to be understood by an international marketer. Now look here, in China, Coca-Cola, when you say cookie cola, means thirsty mouthful of candle wax, or bite the wax tadpole, or female hose stuffed with wax, depending on whichever Chinese dialect it is translated into. So what did Coca-Cola do? They pronounced it as ki kau ki la. I mean, hey, this is not the correct pronunciation. Chinese students, can you help me with the correct pronunciation? How do you say this? Ki kau ki la? Is that correct? Especially people from cities like Beijing or, Shanghai and so on, they may not understand. But if you go into the interior provinces, I think this becomes even more evident, very clear. So did you ever read about this particular issue in your country? Hello, talk to me, guys. Somebody tell something. Hello? Nobody is talking. Okay. So same way, Pepsi Cola had another issue when in German language. So in translated, it means, that they were running a campaign called "Come Alive with Pepsi." But when you translate to German, it means, you come out of the grave alive. That means dead people coming back alive. So the entire meaning of the campaign became very different. And same way, in Taiwan, "Come alive with Pepsi" means Pepsi brings your ancestors back from dead. So you see, when you have global campaigns, these are, global companies. You remember last week we were talking about, ethnocentric, geocentric, and so on. So here they're having this geocentric approach, especially Coke and Pepsi. So when you have geocentric approach and you just translate or use the same campaign across the globe, it may run into trouble. So these are classical examples where you need to be very, very careful about cultural differences in different countries. Same way, the McD's, the white face of Ronald McDonald, I'm sure in front of McD you can find there is a Ronald McDonald sitting with a white face. In Japan, a white mask represents death. So, in Japan, people won't love to see, in front of McDonald's, a white-faced Ronald McDonald. Definitely that is not a good omen in Japan. So all these, if you don't understand as an international marketing manager, these kind of differences, then definitely that's going to create a problem for you. So how culturally sensitive are you? That's a question we need to raise today. Okay? Or you think what is good for you in your country is good for another country? We are referring to ethnocentrism, you remember? And self-reference criterion, SRC and ethnocentrism. Remember the two words we discussed last class? So, if you don't remember these factors, you may think what is good in China is good in Malaysia. What is good in Malaysia could be good in maybe, let's say Nigeria, or what is good in Nigeria could be good in India. It need not be so. Need not be so. So that's why we have to be culturally very sensitive. You understand? Let's also understand the GM, General Motors. They named their car as Nova. And in South America, Nova means it won't go. Who will buy a car which will not move? You understand? So, naming or putting campaigns or putting punchlines, these things must be carefully thought about in each country. The meaning can vary from country to country. Now, there is another classical example of, the Gerber, the cereal. This was specifically designed for, it's a baby food. So they had a cute little baby on the packaging. But in Africa, the literacy rate is not very high. So they think the image on the packaging reflects the product inside. Most of the countries, like where there is literacy, there is not a problem. Like in America, they always put, the user and the product. They say this is meant for kids, so they will show a kid's photo. But when they showed the same packaging in Africa, they thought there is a baby inside, or, they cooked a baby and put inside. So they had to change the packaging and the picture. So they had to put the picture of the cereal with a bowl of cereal. Then people understand, oh, this is a bowl of cereal for babies or kids. You see how culture differs a lot. Same way, Pepsodent, another beautiful example. Pepsodent is a toothpaste. In Southeast Asia, especially, Myanmar, men blacken their teeth. They think that the darker, the blacker the teeth is, the more handsome they are in their culture. So how they chew betel nuts. You can watch the video, I put up the link. Okay, it's very interesting. They chew the betel nuts to blacken their teeth, So, and then they smile, beautiful smiles, Our side, maybe in other countries, we put a lot of effort, time and money to whiten the teeth. They put their time and money in blackening their teeth because that is more attractive in their culture. So when Pepsodent tried to claim that it whitens your teeth, nobody bought, especially the male, they did not buy this toothpaste because they never wanted to whiten their teeth in Myanmar. They wanted to blacken it. You understand? So which means Pepsodent thought that what works in other countries, maybe in India or China or Malaysia, what works here, it will work in Myanmar. No, absolutely not. Then, another example that we have is the vacuum cleaner manufacturer, Electrolux. Obviously, I'm sure most of your homes may have this particular vacuum cleaner. So their punchline went like this: nothing sucks like an Electrolux. Now, this has a very negative meaning in the US. When you say nothing sucks like an Electrolux, it means it's a useless product. It's a rubbish product. It has no value, That's how it means, But what they mean is, this vacuum cleaner can suck every dust or waste that is on the floor. It can take it in, But different cultures understand the same sentence in different context. So understanding cultural context is very, very important if you want to do marketing. Then there is another example is of Fresca. Fresca, in Mexico, they marketed. In Mexico, fresca has a meaning called lesbian, you know. If you use fresca, it's a slang for lesbian in Mexico. So when they launched the product with the name fresca, you know, you can imagine the reaction of Mexicans to this product. I'm sure maybe some of the lesbians bought it, but not others. So all these things are small things which we need to keep in mind, you know. Another example is the Coor slogan, turn it loose. When it was translated into Spanish, it simply meant, you know, you're suffering from loose motion or diarrhea. So the campaign failed. You know, they had to change their campaign to make the product more attractive. So these are all, you know, interesting examples of the importance of knowing the culture. What is good in one culture is not good in another culture. Guys, are you with me? Say yes or no.
Yes, sir.
Good. Any
Yes,
questions
sir.
so far? Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, good. So the next element that we need to explore is, you know, the taste. Taste vary from culture to culture, country to country, region to region, state to state, and so on. Even in Malaysia, it is not a uniform taste people have. The eating habits are different. The nasi lemak that is sold, let's say, in KL, may be very different from the nasi lemak that is sold, let's say, in Penang. I'm sure some of the Malaysians would agree to it. Same way, the food that you cook in Beijing may be very different from the food that you cook in Hainan province. You know, it's going to be, the taste is going to be different. Though you speak the same language, but when it comes to food habits, it's going to be very, very different from region to region. So MACD went to India. They went to India with that ethnocentric approach, saying what is good for America is good for India. And they were marketing the beef burger, but they did not realize that beef, as I said last week, you know, cow is a divine animal. Some, you know, especially the Hindus, worship the cow. So you can't think of Hindus eating their god, you know. So the product failed. So it took them, you know, some time to realize their mistake. Then they came out with, you know, no beef menu. So they had to introduce chicken burger. They had to introduce vegetarian burger. Only then people started moving into the MACD restaurant. And then obviously they came out with the Maharaja burger, and it became a big hit, you know. So taste, and again, it is not only related to taste, it also is related to the cultural sentiments, religious values of different cultures. Same way, you know, the KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, or Wendy's and McD's, they all had to start, you know, localized menu. For example, in Malaysia, if you go to a KFC, you will find nasi lemak also sold in KFC. Very interesting. Huh? You go to India, you will find samosa being sold in KFC. You know, that means they are localizing the taste and preferences. This is very, very important. If not, people wouldn't come in because they like their local taste, local palates. So as an international marketer, you need to really understand, you know. You cannot say, yeah, everyone in China like it, so everyone in Malaysia will like it. No, absolutely not. It doesn't happen that way. Or everyone in Malaysia like it, so everyone in, let's say Zimbabwe or Zambia would love it. No, absolutely not. Regional values. Again, the regional values are very, very different. You look at Canada, for example. Canada is such a huge country with diversified population. A large chunk of Canadian population is French speaking, like especially, regions such as Montreal, Quebec, they're all French speaking more than English speaking. So, and same way, if you look at Malaysia, Malaysia has got, Malay speaking, Chinese speaking, and, Tamil speaking people. So their values also differ. And again, if you go from this, West Malaysia to East Malaysia, let's say Sabah, Sarawak, the taste and preferences are very different. You understand? So this is what we need to understand if you want to be a very good international marketer. That means we keep aside our ethnocentric values, we keep aside our self-reference criterion, then we open our eyes and go and try to mingle with the local customs. And I mean, it's not easy. It calls for additional cost. You understand? It's not easy. It's very easy to offer a standardized product across different countries. It doesn't call for extra marketing budget or product development budget or infrastructure development budget. But the moment you start customizing your product to local tastes and preferences, definitely it will call for extra budget expenses, but that's what will make you a successful business. Look at consumer habits. Consumer habits again are very, very different from country to country. There are countries which are individualistic in nature. There are countries which are, okay, I think somebody has a question. I would like to take that question. Yes, go ahead. What's the question? Hello? If you have no questions, you may raise your hand down. Because I see somebody raising the hand. Okay, so individualistic societies. For example, America is supposed to be an individualistic society, whereas Malaysia or China or let's say any African country for that matter is supposed to be a collectivist society. We'll be studying this next week, what is individualistic and collectivist and so on. It's going to be a very interesting session. Okay, so the consumer habits vary. For example, if you're an individualistic society, your purchasing habits are limited to what you need for today. So that means you buy limited quantity. But if you're a collectivist society, then you will be buying for the entire family for 1 week, most likely. Let's say you have a family where your grandparents, parents, your brothers, sisters stay together, then your purchasing habits are going to be very different. In some cultures, the peer pressure is very important. That means what neighbors buy, what neighbors think is very important before you buy something. Whereas in some other cultures, they don't care what neighbors think, what neighbors have. I just decide what I want. So these are, different consumer habits and personality traits we need to understand. We also need to look at the age or demographics of the consumers that you're going to enter into. This is very, very important. I'll be sharing with you the demographics combinations. different countries have got different demographic combinations. When we say demographics, demographics is nothing but the characteristics of the population. When I say characteristics of the population, we look at, age, gender, income, occupation, profession, all these are characteristics of the population. So when you do your research, when you design a questionnaire, the first thing that you start with is a demographic analysis. Okay, how many of what age, how many of what income, how many of what gender, how many of what occupation, how many of what profession, how many of what education. This is called, the demographic characteristics. So, for example, if you look at America, American population's average age is around 45 to 50. That means it's an aging population. Now, China's population is aging very fast. A few years before, their average age was 28 something. Now, if you look at today, their average age has gone up above maybe 35, 36, 37. That's why China is encouraging 3 children now. They say, okay, you can have 3 kids, don't worry. Why? Because they see their population is aging very fast. Now look at Malaysia. Malaysian average age is around 28, which means it's a very young population average. So we need to study the demographics of the country. That's very, very important. Let's look at the global. Are you able to see this website? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is a kind of live demonstration of the global population. You can see the numbers going up every second. So the current global population is 7.89 billion. 7.89 billion. Now, what is today's birth rate? This is today's birth rate. How many children are born? This year's birth rate and today's death rate. How many people are dying as of today? You can see. And population growth by today and so on and on. Now, let's say if you want to look at the scenario, who is leading in terms of population? Definitely it is China. But if you look at the numbers in China are changing very slowly. That means the birth rate in China is very low, not very high. So let's click on China. The Chinese population is 1.44 billion as of today. 1.44 billion. So if you can see, the curve is slowly flattening. The Chinese population curve is flattening over a period of time. And yearly population growth, if you see, it is declining. You see, it's declining from 1960s to 1970s. It has been declining. 1990, there was a growth. Then from then, you will find it's going downwards. So the current population in China is 1.44 billion. As of today, we are referring to as of yesterday. Then China's estimated population is this, but there's a slight increment. So 18 when you compare Chinese population, 18% of the global population is from China. Okay, now if you see, the average age is 38. A few years before, it was below 30. Suddenly, the Chinese population average age has gone up, which means their population is, aging very fast. So maybe in another 5-10 years time, this will touch maybe 40 or 45, which is not a good thing for China. Because older the population, more the expenses and less the working hands. You understand? Now look at the urban population. 60% of the Chinese population lives in cities, 40% live in rural areas. Okay, so you can see that in the population change is not much, it is declining over a period of time. Okay, and if you see from 2000, that means 10 years before, or 10 or 20 years before, if you see, the average age was just 30, and within 20 years the average age became 38. And if you see, the average age is shooting up like anything, which is not a good news for China. And if you look at India, the next second most populated country, India's population also is declining over a period of years, but the average age in India is still 28, which is quite good. That means there are more youngsters in India than in China now. Okay, but still the urban population, if you see, 70% of the India's population is in rural areas, village. When compared to China, China 60% in urban, whereas India's 70% in rural areas. Okay, it's quite interesting. Okay, it is 1.38. I'm sure maybe in another 5 years of time, India is going to overtake China in terms of population. Now, I'm sure you also want to see your own countries. Maybe let's look at let's look at Malaysia. I'm very, very keen to see Malaysia, I believe. Malaysia is somewhere in the 40s, I believe, yeah, 45 in terms of population. So their population is just 32 million, okay? Not much populated. And in Malaysia also, if you see, the population has been declining over a period of time. The average age has gone up to 30 years. If you see from, 2019, 2 years before, last year, 2 years before it was 28, suddenly it has become 30 because of the aging population. So Malaysia will age faster because the number of kids born are less in Malaysia. Any other country you want to have a look at? If you can tell me, I can show you. Anybody has got any question?
Hello, dear
Yes.
professor.
Yeah.
Can you share this link with us?
Pardon?
Share this link.
It's already there, right, in your PowerPoint?
Oh, okay.
You can still, I can share.
Share this link. We can see this link.
Okay, just hold on. You already shared. Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. So, any other country you want to see? Yeah? Anyone else from any other country? We have seen China, India, Malaysia. Any other country? Nobody wants to have a look at your own country. So this shows the global ranking in terms of population. Okay, so US, Indonesia, Pakistan, Brazil, Nigeria is number 7. Anyone from Nigeria or Bangladesh here? Nobody, I believe.
Sir, I am from Bangladesh.
Okay, so why you're not curious to see about your country? Let's have a look at your country. So the population of your country is 164 million, and the average age is 27, very young, and the urban population is just 40%. So that means 60% is still in rural areas. Okay, and the population growth, and if you see, nearly 369,000 people have left Bangladesh to other countries. Negative migration, that means people are leaving Bangladesh to other countries, maybe to Europe and so on and on, looking for better opportunities because of the huge population there, you know. So this is another interesting data that we can look at. Obviously, this is of 2020 data, not this year's. This year's data is not released. So by early next year, you'll find this year's data. Okay. So it's quite interesting. Any other country? All right. So this shows your demographic scenario. Okay, so this is how you do a demographic analysis. For example, anytime you want to do some research on demographic variables of different countries, this is the website that you must refer to. This is very important. Okay, let's go back to so this is how we do the demographic analysis. We have also analyzed the age and so on. Now let's look at some of the mega cities in the world. Now most of the mega cities are centered around Asia, centered around maybe China, then India, then some in Africa, some in Europe, and some in Americas. Okay. So if you look at those pink color, by 2030, how many new mega cities? In America, none. Europe, only one. Rest will be in Asia. Okay, Africa, just two. And the rest will be in Asia, the mega cities. This is something interesting to look at, the trend. Okay, so if you look at China, there are so many like Ho Chi Minh, Nanjing. Then we have in South Korea, you have then again China, Chengdu, India, Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, etc., etc. So quite a number of new cities are coming up. This is the 2019 data. So Tokyo leading in terms of population, almost 38 million population, Then Jakarta, Indonesia with almost 34 million population. Then New Delhi with around 28 million population. Manila, Philippines with almost 25 million population, and so on and on and on. So you can see the population of the mega cities. It's quite interesting to see highly populated countries. Okay, now we move on to this. We have completed the cultural aspect. Now we move on to the economic environment. Okay, when we look at the economic environment, we also need to look at the developed economies, the triad, okay, like USA, European Union, Japan. Obviously, European Union as of now is broken down into two, like UK. UK is separated through Brexit, if you remember. Now, UK is going through an unprecedented, labor crisis. Earlier, majority of the labor class came from European Union, especially those smaller European countries, like truck drivers, labor class, people who will do restaurant work, etc., etc. But now they all had to leave UK because of the exit of UK from European Union. Because earlier, you remember, if you're part of the European Union, you don't need a visa. You can work in any of the union countries. You can travel freely, work in any country, stay in any country. But now that they are gone, UK has got around, 1.6 million vacancies, and most of the restaurants and so on, they have no laborers to work. This is a, exploding labor crisis in UK as of today. Very interesting. Then we also have the emerging economies. When we say emerging economies, we are looking at the China, India, Brazil, Mexico, Poland, South Africa, Russia. Most of these countries, like, we used the term last week called, it's called BRICS, BRICS, BRICS. Okay, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. So all these are emerging economies, and they're growing very fast. And they're also dual economies. You will find a contrast of urban wealthy and urban poor or rural poor, And they have government directed economic reform. That means the government plays a dominant role when it comes to economic reforms in these countries. And the consumer demand in these countries is very, very huge. That means there is an insatiable demand for consumer goods like consumer electronics and consumer perishables and so on. Then we have the less developed countries, LDCs. So they are low in gross domestic product, GDP, and they do not have manufacturing base. Mostly they are agri-based economies, and their infrastructure is very, very weak. When we say infrastructure, we are referring to, rail, road, air, water, all four ways. Okay. And mostly they are dependent on a single product. I know we have some classical examples here. If you look at Cuba, Cuba is traditionally known for sugar or tobacco products, And Colombia is a major exporter of coffee. So if, let's say, demand for coffee plummets or fall down, then the Colombian economy will crash. Same way, if sugar demand reduces, Cuban economy will crash. Nigeria, to a large extent, is dependent on oil. And obviously, I always wonder, Nigeria is such a resource-rich country, but it's such a poor country even at the same time. The answer is in the political class that they have, who is simply exploiting all the resources without sharing it with the people. That's why we have a lot of rebellion groups in Nigeria. Ghana is known for cocoa and so on and on. So you see, if you want to enter into any of these countries, you must know the dynamics of these countries, like whether they fall into emerging economies, developed economies, less developed economies, or least. There is LLDC. LLDC stands for least developed economies. That means they are very backward. Their industries have not picked up. Their agriculture has not evolved. And maybe 80% of the people are still below poverty line and so on and on. Another factor that you need to look at is the per capita income of the country. I'm sure when you study your managerial economics, you'll be touching upon the per capita income also. So many of the countries, the per capita income is very, very low. Per capita income is the average income of the citizens in a country. Okay, for example, Eritreans have got less than $800 a year, which is very, very low. So you divide $800 by 12 months, you can imagine what is their purchasing capacity in a month. You understand? Okay. So When you want to enter a country, you need to study the per capita income, the purchasing power. This is very, very important, you know. Now, you see, for example, your company is selling luxury brands of which cost, let's say, $60,000 to $80,000. Maybe just 1% of the population will be able to afford your product. Let's say a country like Estonia. But that 1%, maybe around 10,000 people. Out of that 10,000 people, maybe you think 5,000 people can buy your product. Still, that could be a good market for you, because you're looking at a niche market, you know. Niche market, please understand, is where the size of the market is very low, number one. Number two, that small market can give you an enough profit level. Then we say it's a niche market. For example, most of the luxury brands like Ferrari, BMW, they all work on niche market. They don't look at the mass market. Mass market means majority of the people can afford your product. For example, if you look at Unilever's product, or let's say in Malaysia, you have Proton and Peridua, car manufacturers. Or in China, you have, let's say, Geely. These brands is targeting the majority market, not the minority or the small or the niche market. You understand? So what is your target market? Whom do you target your product with? So how do you look at your, is per capita income a criteria for you when you want to enter a country? Think of all these, you know, factors. That's very, very important. Look at the class structure. You know, normally the class structure is divided as, you know, the upper class, middle class, and lower class. That's a traditional classification. But remember, even in the upper class, there is rich among the poor. So you have upper class, upper middle class, upper lower class. That means there is also a middle class among the rich. There is also poor among the rich. You know, you can classify. Same way, upper middle class, middle class, lower middle class, you know, lower class, you know, the lower middle class, you know, those kind of, you know, classifications are very, very important. So country to country, this varies. For example, if you go to US, you will find a significant proportion of upper middle class people there. But if you go to, let's say, Philippines, it will be middle class or lower middle class. Same way, if you go to India, the number of middle class will be much higher than the upper class or the poor class, you know, because 70% of the Indians are in the rural background. So you find maybe the lower class will be, or upper lower class will be much higher. So you go to China, you'll find again an interesting mix of class structure. So understanding class structure is very important, especially when it comes to pricing strategies. Otherwise, your pricing strategies are bound to go wrong. Another factor is the supply and demand factor. Supply and demand plays an important role. You know, for example, if there is an abundant supply of raw materials and goods, definitely, you know, the price will be middle or lower. But let's say if the supply is high, the demand is less, the price are bound to be less. The demand is high and the supply is lower, the price is going to be higher. For example, I don't know how many of you have heard of this kopi luwak. This is supposed to be a very expensive coffee coming from Indonesia, Myanmar, and so on. Now, what is this kopi luwak? Kopi luwak, it's also called as civet cat coffee. Now, civet cat is a wild cat in the jungles of Bali, Indonesia. And these, they look like a cat, okay? But they live in the forest on trees. And they eat the coffee beans. They like the sweet, ripe coffee beans they like. They like to eat it. So they eat the whole bean, and the bean is in their tummy for 2 or 3 days. So when it is in the tummy, the bean gets fermented, and after 2 or 3 days, they shit the beans out. So the people go and collect this coffee bean from the shit, and they process this coffee. And this is one of the most expensive coffee in the world, coffee luwak. And obviously it is coming from the animal poop, something very interesting. Anybody has tried this coffee? This, this cost 1 kilo of coffee will cost around $80 or $100. So expensive is the coffee. Have you tried this? Anyone?
Chinese tea.
Yeah. Did you try?
Tea.
You drink the coffee. This one.
No.
Ah,
Chinese tea.
from the pea. What do you say? You want to take a break?
He said Chinese tea.
Or Chinese tea. But Chinese tea is different. Chinese tea is different from coffee, okay?
This coffee in China is expensive.
But this coffee is very different. Now what is happening is in Indonesia is they are feeding elephants with this coffee bean. Then after 2-3 days, they take out the coffee beans from the elephant dung, then they process it. Now, animal rights activists, they have come out against force feeding. Now, what they do is, a lot of people catch this civet cat, domesticate it, force feed coffee beans. So animal rights have come out against this coffee. There's a big issue going on now. But still, this is an exotic coffee. People who are looking for these kind of things, they love to get it. One of my students from Indonesia bought this coffee for me, and I really tasted it, but I couldn't see what is the difference, All that I could tell everyone, hey, I'm drinking coffee luwak, it's something different, just to show I'm different, that's all. But what they say is that this coffee bean does not have the bitterness, the typical bitterness of the coffee, because it is fermented inside the tummy of the animal. So all the bitterness and the acidity is taken out in the fermentation process. That's what they say. But it was something very interesting. It's a different experience. So if you get a chance to drink this coffee, try it, okay? If you go to Indonesia, try for coffee luwak. It's interesting. So the demand is very high, the supply is very less, so the price also is very high. So if we can come out with something unique selling, it's called a USP, unique selling proposition. It's exotic, it's something different, it's unique, it's something not common. So as an international marketer, you need to ask this question, is my product unique, something different? Is this having a high demand and low supply? Then your price could be, or pricing could be different. All right, so you can search online for coffee luwak or civet cat coffee. You will get a lot of literature and case reading on that. Okay, it's interesting to study. Another factor that you need to understand if you want to enter into a foreign country is the financial transactions and the banking structure. Okay, for some countries, for every financial transaction, they may charge a higher interest rate or higher transaction charge. Or, every time you pay through credit card, debit card, online payment, the processing fees could be very high. So these are some of the things that you must really remember, when you're thinking about banking and financial transactions in a country. What are the other economic factors? Let's look at some of the economic factors affecting your business. When you say economic factors, we are looking at especially, for example, we look at the economic performance of a country. Now, how do we measure economic performance? Number one, what is the inflation rate? If the inflation rate is very high, that means the prices of goods and commodities are going to shoot up. You understand? Then we also look at the value of the currency in that country. What is the value? Is that a devalued currency, or when comparison to dollars, is the value good? You need to understand. Then you also need to see whether the government of a country encourage business. I would like to give some examples from India, okay? In India, there is a state called Kerala. It's more or less like Malaysia, okay, in terms of population, geography, but it's a small, tiny state. In terms of population, similar. In terms of geography, similar, but in terms of landmass, it's very tiny. This country, I mean, this state has got a political system, communist government, just like China. But here, it's an elected communist government, okay? And this was the state which had the first elected communist government in the whole world, you know. Very interesting. In 1956, this state had the first elected communist government. So communism is very strong in Kerala. So as a result, you know, they always believe in communist ideology. They are kind of averse to capitalism and most of the labor industries. They're not industry friendly. So one of the company in Kerala called Kitex, it's an interesting case study. It's called Kitex. They are cloth exporters. They manufacture clothes and they export clothes. So the government has been harassing them all the while, you know, through raids. You know, every day there is some government agency visiting this company, maybe pollution, maybe electricity, maybe tax, maybe labor. You know, different departments will visit them, harass them. Finally, this company was fed up this, and they said, okay, if you keep harassing us like this, we'll move to another state. The moment he put this in the newspaper or in a press conference, so many other states went and requested him to come to their state. So one state called Telangana in India, that's another state. It's just like a Chinese province, state. We call it a state. This state, they chartered a flight, sent to this guy, took him over to their state, and he invested, you know, such a huge chunk of money there. So what is the economic environment? How investor friendly are you? You know, that's very important. Some countries have something called special economic zones. That means you want to attract foreign investors, they come out with special economic zones. That means, okay, I'll give you 5 years of tax holidays. I'll give you free land, free electricity, free infrastructure. You don't need to worry. Every license I'll give you, everything is ready. You just come and start your business. Like Malaysia also has got similar. I'll be discussing this with you later when we study this particular aspect. Okay, especially FDI, we'll be studying how Malaysia is attracting foreign direct investors from other countries. Then what is the economic freedom level? Now, for example, a few things happened recently in China, the economic freedom. For example, the Chinese government recently banned tuition centers across China. They say there is no more tutoring, no more tuition teaching, because obviously the government had the reason saying that the cost of education is going up. The children have no time for fun. children from school to tuition center again they study, then they go back to school. Children are suffering. So the Chinese government said, from now onwards, there is no more tuition teaching. Correct? That's one thing. Then they also crack down on universities. They say there is no more collaboration with foreign universities without government's approval. So if you want to do dual award franchising from UK or Europe, then it needs special permission from the government, without which you can't do this kind of dual awards and things like that. They also cracked on the property market. I was just reading through how recently quite a number of apartments which were under construction were demolished. I don't know what is the story behind that, but maybe because they are illegal constructions or so on. So from what I read, the government's interference on all these are quite huge. And of recent, if I were to read recent times, the most important property market crash in China happened because the company called Evergrande, I'm sure this is one of the property giant in China, and they crashed recently. And we have to wait and watch whether the Chinese government is going to bail them out. We are not sure whether that is going to happen or not. Okay, but what you find is the Chinese government has got a threefold agenda. Number one, they say they want to rationalize the education cost. Number two, they want to rationalize the property market cost. And they also want to rationalize the healthcare cost. Now, if you want to understand it further, you have to relate it with the Chinese policy on population. Recently, we saw that the Chinese average age is around 38. And even though the Chinese government said you can have 3 kids, most of the parents are not willing to have 3 kids because of the rising cost in these 3 areas. 1, education. Number 2, property. Number 3, healthcare. So the Chinese government wanted to bring, obviously communism is all about supporting the masses. It's not about supporting the riches. Okay, but in recent years, you find that there is a lot of capitalism that has grown into the communist regime. Especially, you find huge e-commerce companies like Alibaba. So they immediately crack down on Alibaba. They crack down on their payment gateways, cryptocurrencies, and so on. Then now they're cracking down on the property market, healthcare system, education system, because maybe the Chinese government want to send out a message that the government is meant for the common man, So you can have more kids, the government, and still all these are affordable and so on. So this is something that you need to closely watch and understand if you want to invest in China at this juncture. Okay, then what is the economic performance? Again, you need to understand economic performance in comparison to global performance. Okay, China's economy has been growing quite well. India's economy has been growing quite well. Let's say about 6 to 8% in the last 2 years. But if you look at other economies, be it Japan, US, and so on, you find the economic growth is at a snail's pace. It's very, very gradual and very slow because they are already developed economies. So who is growing? The BRICS nations are growing, like China, Russia, India, Brazil, South Africa, Indonesia, Bangladesh. All these countries are growing rapidly when compared to other countries. So maybe in the next 10 years, you'll find there will be huge growth. Now you look at this growth projection if you see growth projection, mostly emerging and developing Asia, you find the growth projections are positive. This year it is 8.6 and next year it is 6% for Asia. Middle East 3.7 and 3.8. Euro Asia is 4.4 and 3.8. And United States, it's 6.4 and 3.5. Latin America and the Caribbeans is 4.6 and 3.1. Sub-Saharan Africa is 3.4 and 4.4. So if you look at the overall picture, what you find is Asia is the growth engine for the global economy. Asian economy is actually driving global economic growth when compared to other regions. So if you look at the emerging economies of the world, the green color indicates the emerging economies. Like if you look at the Latin America, you have Mexico, Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, Brazil, Chile, Argentina. Then you come to Africa, you find Morocco, Egypt, South Africa, Nigeria. Then you go to Europe, you will find Romania, Poland, Czech, Hungary, Greece, Bulgaria. Then if you come on Turkey, if you come to Middle East, yes, Egypt and Saudi Arabia. You come to South Asia, this Pakistan, India, Bangladesh. You come to Southeast Asia, it is Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Philippines. Okay, then you come to the East Asia, you have Hong Kong, Taiwan, China, South Korea, Russia. So this is how the growth is taking place. So this also give you.
Sorry for interrupt. We can't see the slide.
Thank you for telling me this. Okay. Can you see now?
Yes, now can.
Okay, just immediately you should tell me, don't wait. You are able to see this slide or not?
Yes, now we can see.
Earlier you never saw, right?
Actually, it was patched.
Yeah, so this was the growth projection by region. So you look at this particular slide, you will find Asia is the growth engine, right? Growing at 8.6 and 6.0, mainly because of, I would say, China and India. Main contributor to Asia's growth is India and China. Then comes other countries. So, and if you look at the emerging economies, you find whichever is green colored, these are the emerging economies. So your assignment is asking you to move to another country, be it Africa, Asia, or Europe. So you have to see which is an emerging economy. If you say you want to go to Somalia or you want to go to Kenya, it's not an emerging economy. So do you really want to go into that particular country? You know, that's a question that you need to ask, you know. So this should help you to actually choose your country very, very carefully. Clear? Now look at the economic freedom, you know. This also is an indicator of how much of economic freedom is there in these countries. So the blue color indicates mostly free or 90% free. The blue color, like Australia, Japan, New Zealand, European Union, then most of Canada and America, United States, etc. Then comes the green color, which is somewhat free, like India, Malaysia, etc., etc. Okay, Mexico, and so on. Then the third quartile, you have not so free, which comes under, you know, Russia, China, and so on. And then not at all free, not at all free. You have most of the African countries, if you see, they are not at all free. Some of the Middle Eastern countries, not at all free. Some of the Latin American countries, not at all free. And most of these countries, if you see, they are dictatorial in nature. That's why you find, they are flashed in red color. So the question is, do you want to, invest in those countries? Is this a, scalable business? Does it bring you long-term revenue? These are questions you must be asking. Okay, we also have different economic systems like a command economy, mixed economy, and market economy. In command economy, the economic freedom is very low. Like the one that was in red color, if you see, they are the command economies. That means mostly it would be, communism. Communism is the philosophy, political philosophy. And then we have the mixed economy. Mixed economy is where you find a mix of mostly socialism. And then we have, like India is a mixed economy, it's a mix of capitalism and socialism. Then we have a market-driven economy, which is like, let's say, America, for a very good example. So high economic freedom, okay? And mostly the factors of production are controlled by individuals, like land, labor, capital, data, whatever it is controlled by individuals. But whereas in a mixed economy, government and private enterprises jointly own factors of production, whereas in a command economy, the government 100% on the factors of production, and so on. So how do we improve the economic analytics? Obviously, with the help of economic growth rate, population size, and purchasing power parity. Now, purchasing power parity reflects what is the per capita income. For example, the rich and the poor, what is the gap between those two? For example, the rich are super rich, they can afford anything. The poor are super poor, they cannot afford anything. That means the purchasing power parity gap is very huge. In most of the countries, that's the case. You go to Africa, either you're rich or poor, there is no middle class. But you come to, let's say, China, India, you'll find a lot of middle class. Okay. Another term that you must remember is the role of shadow economies. Now, shadow economies are parallel economies. They are extra legal or unauthorized economies. Mostly, like unlicensed taxi, it's like street trading, anything which is not government approved. Like you have you have a lot of black money for that, illegal currency trading, and so on and on. Okay, and other examples, most of the smuggling, drug dealing, gambling, all those could be parallel economies, piracy, etc., etc. So, if, for example, in some of the African countries, all these are rampant. For example, Somalia is known for piracy. I hope there is no Somalian here. Huh? Don't shoot me down. Right? They are known for piracy. Right? So, and if you look at, let's say, Mexico is known for drugs. A lot of drugs dealings and so on takes place. If you watch some of the interesting movies, you can see this and so on. Okay, and same way, if those kind of shadow economies are prevalent, they can affect your profitability also as a genuine business. So, which are the top 10 largest economies? Obviously, United States number 1 as of today. Then China number 2, India number 3, Japan number 4, Russia number 5, Germany, then Brazil, France, UK, Indonesia, and so on and on. I'm sure maybe in another 5 years of time, China could overtake United States. It's not very far behind. Okay, it's not very far behind. Another aspect is the internet and the World Wide Web technological environment. Technological environment is a very important environment that we need to understand if you want to enter into a country to do business. Because technologically backward countries cannot help you to do business. For example, without internet in today's context, it's very difficult to do business. Just can you imagine to do business without internet? Or if still they have the 2G network, not 4G or 5G network, you will be in deep trouble. You can't do any business transactions. So without the right technology, without electronic communications, without internet, it will be really, really difficult to do business. So we need to also check at the role of internet and what is happening with internet. Let's look at that. I've just pasted the link in the chat box for you to refer. But let's. Are you able to see this particular website, Internet Live Stats? Can you see or not? Hello? Hello?
Yes, can see, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So this is again a live data which shows the number of internet users in the world, total websites in the world, how many emails are sent out today, how many Google searches today, how many blogs are there, how many tweets are there, how many YouTube videos are watched, how many photos are uploaded, how many Tumblr posts, and so on and on and on and on. Okay, so how many websites are hacked today? Quite interesting, right? How many smartphones are sold today? How many computers are sold today? What is the internet traffic today? Okay, what is the CO2 emissions today, carbon emission? So it gives you a kind of, interesting data, which will give you, if you want more information, you can definitely click here and go and see. For example, this will give you a data, in terms of year-wise, what is the data? Okay, and it will also give you an internet users by region. Like for example, 48% of the internet users come from Asia, 21% from Americas, North and South, 19% from Europe, 9% from Africa, and the remaining from other areas. So Asia dominates the internet usages, It's very interesting to look at this definitely because of India and China, I would say. So you can get this kind of data when you're doing your research, especially for your assignment. So you can use this kind of data and you can cite, you have taken this data from Internet Live Stats, and you can do citation and referencing and so on. This is how you have to do your research. Okay, so I'm not just asking you to write things in your assignment, but whatever you write, back it up with data, live data. Give citations and referencing. This is very important to get good marks in your assignment. That's why I'm showing you all these websites, so that you know where to get the data from. So this gives a kind of idea about which regions or which continents are actually ahead in terms of data usage. Okay, and if you want to list by countries, you can see like China is leading with the highest number of internet users, obviously because of the high population, then India, then US, then Brazil, then Japan, Russia, and so on and on. So if you look at Malaysia, it's number 30. But it's okay. Out of 32 million population, I think around 21 million is a good number. It's a good, huge number. And out of 1.2 or 1.3 billion, you see India, only 34% of the population uses internet in India. In China, 52% uses, whereas in US, if you see, 88% use internet. Brazil, 66%. Japan, 91% of the population use internet. It's very interesting data you see now. Russia, 71% people use internet. Germany, 88%. UK, 92%. France, 86%. Indonesia, only 20%. Vietnam, even better, 52%. Okay, South Korea, 85%. Canada, 88%. I'm looking at Malaysia, 68% of the population use internet, which is very high. So you see, this is how you have to look at the data. If you look by country ranking, it will give you a misleading data because it's based on population. But you have to look at the percentage of the population who use internet. That's where you get the actual data. You look at the non-users and the users. Okay, so this will give you an interesting data. Okay, guys, I think it is time to take a break. Is it so? Do you think so? Do you want a break?
Yes, I want.
Oh, good. Take a break. Okay. So it's 11:40. You can come back by 11:55. 15 minutes break.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.